All right, well, welcome back to part 2 of the American Revolution. This time I want to take a look at some of the steps toward a revolting situation. If you remember from episodes before, we're talking about the situation. It's that triangle diagram. Situation leads to some certain problems and so certain opportunities, and those opportunities and problems are weighed, leading to some possible choices on what to do about that situation and problems and opportunities. The decision is made, and that leads into a new situation. So we're in that same thing. I want to look at how are the colonists set up in that situation? What steps brought them to a place where the problems, the risks, the opportunities were completely irrelevant to some degree, and they just said, it's just time to revolt. How did they get there? What was that situation and how did it look like? Then I want to look at what kind of arose just before the revolution really got kicked off and started, and that was Thomas Paine's common sense. What does common sense mean? How was it perceived back in his day and time? And then, of course, the revolution itself and the wrap-up. Okay? So let's go take a look at what this looks like. So the steps towards that revolting decision, and when I say revolting, I mean they've decided to revolt. What does that situation look like? We talked a little bit about the Declaration of Independence, the concept, the idea, the belief that government is established by the people to secure and protect the rights, the liberties of the people. The government doesn't exist all on its own. It doesn't design itself. It is a design and an appointment by and for the people. And secondly, that if the government fails to do this, fails to protect the rights and liberties of its people, then the people have the right to rise up and get rid of it or abolish it or change it. And so that's really what is going to happen. In that Declaration of Independence, following that those opening paragraphs, the writers list, and depending on how you count them, it could be anywhere from like 18 to 21 different complaints, grievances, things that they believe the king is not doing or the king has done in violation of that social contract. That's really the guts of the Declaration of Independence. Other than a couple paragraphs in the beginning and a paragraph towards the end, there's nothing other in this document other than that whole body in the center. That's all. He does this, he does this, he does this, he does this, he's not doing this, he's not doing this, and it's not right. And because of these reasons, they conclude, we are willing to give everything, our lives, our property, everything to the cause of eradicating him from our government. We are going to be independent from him so that we could set up our own is the conclusion. So what actions or situation did the colonists feel violated their social contract? What were some of the specifics that were in there? Well, go back to the end of the French and Indian War. Finishes up, wraps up in 1763, and the British win. British win, but it's the British and the colonists. They win. They beat France. And remember, they're looking at this territory to the west of the little eastern strip. They want to go over into this area, that big open pink and northwestern region. They want all that. They want to be able to settle there. They want to farm there. They want to pursue their own happiness and their own liberties in that region. Well, sadly, the British government, even though it controls that whole vast space, they're kind of going, we just spent a whole lot of money, and it's really going to be a hard thing for us to maintain an army, a standing army, to police all that area. And we really don't want the colonists to look west. We want them to stay focused on us. I mean, they're ours. They belong to us, is sort of Britain's mentality. So they proclaim this line of boundary, this proclamation line. It's that white box that kind of goes right up against the colonies on the East Coast. And it's the Appalachian Mountains is basically what they are. So they draw this line. Britain draws this line and says, okay, settlers, you can't go across that line. Stay where you are. Well, the whole French and Indian War sort of had its start with people trying to cross that region and get into the Ohio Valley and start utilizing the resources there. But England, after the war, says, no, we're going to slam that shut. You can't cross that. That's number one. So limiting settlement westward. Secondly, they have more navigation acts in 1763 that also come and says, okay, if you are going to receive any goods from overseas, they must land in the New World, land in the colonies on a British ship. That's kind of weird. Also, if you are going to export any of your goods anywhere, you can only export them to England. Not to France, not Spain, not Portugal, not Italy, not Africa, nowhere. You have to, it all has to come to us. You are mine, and everything that you own is mine. And so that's restricting trade. So those types of things become a bit of a problem. So what is that Atlantic situation? The top part is England wanted colonies' focus to stay eastward. Trade, society, culture, everything goes with England, nowhere else. England could not afford to secure the liberties of the people that were in the colonies. They couldn't also, if you think about it, well, which one was more important? Securing the interests, the liberties of the colonists, or securing their own personal interest in the colonies, the companies, the profits, the supplies and trade and goods that are coming out of that. You can take a guess which one it is. My guess is there's probably a little bit of both, but I would tend to think that England would be more out for its own interest. Parliament is out for its own liberties and profits, etc. But the colonist situation, they're seeing it a little bit differently. They felt deep ties to Britain. That's that social contract binding, that bond with mother country. They felt that they were citizens of Britain, and as a result of being citizens of this country, that this social contract that they had and understood existed between king, parliament, and the colonists. But the problem is even though they believed that they were citizens and had the common rights, these are not rights written down on any like Bill of Rights or anything, that one didn't exist at that time, but these were expectations. They expected that the parliament would balance the king's power, and that together with the king and parliament, their liberties, their interests, the colonists' interests, would be protected. Their civil rights would be protected. But their question was, but who are our intermediaries? This is the word that we got last time. The in-between people, the ones that stand up and present our voice, that represent us before the king and parliament. Who is protecting our interests? That's their mentality at this time. And in 1770, the big Boston Tea Party, everybody knows about this, the colonists decide that they're going to object to tyranny, to that government not doing what the government is supposed to do in protecting the people's rights. Now, this is not about taxes. This is not about taxes. This is a tea tax. England put a tea tax on the colonists, and a bunch of people got together in Boston, dressed up like Indians or Native Americans, and threw all of this ship's tea, all this English tea, into the ocean and ruined it. It's not about the tax. That's not the heart of it. Colonists, historians say, colonists were taxed far, far less than the citizens that were living in England at this time. So it's not likely to be about strictly taxes. It's about the violating of their right to choose or have a voice in the taxes. Did I give you, here's the question, colonists might ask the king or parliament, did I give you that liberty that said you can take my money, my prosperity, and use it in a way that you want to without consulting me, without first asking me to give you that authority? That's the question. That's the complaint. That's why they're rising up. You are taking liberties without us giving you permission. That's the problem. It's not part of the social contract. You're violating the contract. So, trade limitations, taxing without representation, dismissal of colonial intermediaries. Who are these colonial intermediaries? Who are the people that are sort of rising up to be the voice of the people in the colonies? That's their question. They had created some and they were thrown away. This is not about what we would today call democracy. This is not about, well, who gets to vote and who doesn't get to vote. Democracy. It's not the voting of the majority rules. That's not what this is all about. This is about liberties and the violation of liberties and the social contract that was between England and its people in the colonies, the North American colonies. So, what do the colonists do? Well, they say, okay, well, government's supposed to be designed and appointed. We're going to appoint our own intermediaries. We're going to appoint our own councils. And so they do. And this is like one of the famous pictures, you've probably seen it in many history books. So, the councils, they believe themselves to be colonial intermediaries. They were appointed by the landowners in the region. Is that like pure democracy? No. No, not everybody voted. Not everybody got to pick who gets to go. But it was still much better than what was before. And those intermediaries were expected to voice and protect the liberties of the people. They were not elected, but landowners and notable people within the communities appointed them. They felt they had the right and duty to fight tyranny. Remember, we had that discussion last week. The intermediaries, the nobles back in England, those intermediaries believed their job was to keep the king down from going too cray-cray with his powers and just going berserk against all the people. So, same thing here. These colonial intermediaries, these councils, believed that their job was to sort of put down, protect the people against tyranny, and developed a worldview that tied ideologies of the philosophers. So these things that we talked about in our last video, separation of powers, that all people are created equal, that governments are created and designed by the people, for the people, to protect the people, all those ideas, they start to incorporate these ideas in how they exercise their intermediary powers. And out of this rises the Continental Congress. That was one of these councils. And the colonists see that they now have common cause. They are looking at the situation that seems to be common in every state, in every colony. They're saying we have all the same complaints. Our grievances kind of connect us in a common cause. And out of this commonality, this common cause, rises a gentleman named Thomas Paine with his book, Common Sense. And so if you ask, well, according to the early Americans, the founding fathers, what is common sense? Common sense was that innate feeling that you're not being treated right, that your liberties are not being protected. It's a sense of discomfort. It's a sense of something is wrong. It makes common sense. Everybody knows it in the colonies. That was his whole point. He just kept saying it again and again and again. We all share this common sense. Common sense saying something's not right. And the only way to fix it, he says, is to revolt. The only way to get rid of this feeling of being betrayed, of having this contract being violated, is to rise up and fight against this violator and to shake him off and put on a new form of government that really truly will take care of us. So revolution breaks out in 1775, and without, I mean, you're going to take a U.S. history course next year, so I don't want to go into all of the details of the revolution, but here's a very fast breakdown. It begins in or around Boston. Colonists declare independence in 1776. Britain pretty much dominates the sea at first, but then France joins in. Now, why would France join in? Maybe because they hate England. They're trying to get back at England for the French and Indian War, and England's win over them there. For whatever reason, France decides they're going to help the colonists in 1777. They join. Britain is taking over Charleston in the south and is sort of marching its troops northward, trying to get to Yorktown. They get to Yorktown, and when they do, the French literally come. Yorktown's a seaport kind of town. The French Navy comes in and blockades the entrance. Nothing is coming in, nothing is going out. The British troops start losing their food, their supplies. They realize they've been cut off from their motherland, so to speak. And that happens in 1781. So in 1782, the British say, all right, we give up, we're not going to fight anymore, you win. And in one of the most amazing, some would say providential, turns of events, Britain has this new administration, new government, and this government is like really nice. Is that a good word for it? They just kind of like give everything to America. Here, have it, take it, take it, take it. So they decide to grant everything in that outline, all of that. Colonists, you just take all that. You wanted it in the first place, you just take it. You wanted it all the way back in the French and Indian War, just take it. Have it all the way over to the Mississippi. You can have Florida, you can have West Florida, you can have all of that. It's all yours. And that's like really weird. I mean, historians really still don't know why exactly Britain was so conciliatory. They just gave everything. They were so benevolent, so to speak, in this. Yep, we lost, so here, take it all. So America now has pretty much more than doubled in its size land mass-wise, and they have to come up with a way to govern themselves. Paine says we got to throw off the old. It's just common sense. It makes sense. Everybody knows it. We got to throw it off, and we got to put on a new. Well, they first put on the Articles of Confederation, and that doesn't work well. So the council meets again and says, you know what? This current government's not working. This design's not working. It's not protecting and serving our liberties, so we need to change it. And so they changed it to the Constitution, into a more perfect union, a more perfect contract, social contract, that would serve the people in a much better way. And that's pretty much where the American Revolution sort of wraps itself up, is in that Constitution. So we have the Declaration of Independence that sets the groundwork, that frames the ideologies upon which the Constitution sort of is centered. And it can't get out of those principles and remains to this day. Some might say, well, it's living. It should change over time, and some of the old things should drop away and we should get some new things. The senator from last saying that we should just get rid of the First Amendment. It's a hindrance. It doesn't work. It doesn't serve us. I'm not sure. What do you think? Are you ready to give up the Constitution, to give up the principles that are behind it? Should we play with that a little bit more? Maybe yes, maybe no. So next week, we'll go into the French Revolution, which is sort of spawned out of the American Revolution. The American Revolution really encourages many countries, many peoples around the world to sort of rise up and take these same philosophies, these same beliefs, and make it their beliefs and their government in their countries. And we'll look at that in 1 week coming. See you later.